I hope you're doing well. And good to see your face, even though it's not in person. Before we begin, because this meeting is virtually, I need to read a determination that authorizes us to meet via Zoom. And the determination states, pursuant to Utah Code annotated 52-4-2074, the city's mayor, as the chair of the city council and the community development renewal agency, hereby determines that conducting a meeting of those bodies on this date at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. It is well recognized that a global pandemic currently exists related to COVID-19 coronavirus, which has the potential to overwhelm Utah's healthcare system. Therefore, due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. Therefore, we're meeting virtually. Hopefully within the next couple months, we'll be able to meet in person. Referring to your agenda, item 2, it's reviewing the business meeting agenda, where it's a fairly short agenda, but I think it's important to review that at this time. After public comments, we have 4 action items. The first item is a resolution 2021-11, ratifying a bid and awarding a construction contract to M&M Asphalt Services for citywide slurry seal project. Matt, do you want to introduce that quickly?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is for the year 3, I believe. Yes, year 3 of our 5-year road plan maintenance that was adopted and accepted a while back. This is for the slurry seal projects. That's the same agreement we've signed. They did it the last time as well, I believe.
And for the council information, that's for $333,000, and it's a competitive bid process that I'm sure we have more than one bidder. Is that correct, Matt?
Yes, sir, that is correct. I believe we had 4 bids on that project, so these were the low bid.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments regarding that action item later on? The next item, 4.2, is resolution 2021-12, approving interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County for the conveyance to the city of Mill Hollow Park, which is in District 3. It's a small neighborhood park that, if you remember, during our last budget process, we agreed to take that ownership and provide the maintenance, etc. Tim or Shane, do you want to introduce what that agreement entails?
Yeah, I can do that. We did talk about this in the retreat back in 2020. As you recall, that we would take over the ownership of Butler and Mill Hollow Parks. We've actually budgeted in this budget year for the ongoing maintenance. What this agreement does is formalizes the conveyance of Mill Hollow Park, and it includes different aspects of it, including that we would be the sole owner, that we're responsible for maintenance, that there's a perpetual restriction that it has to remain as a public park or open space. There is a provision that if there's a street widening or something like that, that would be allowed. So it has to be park or open space, or it reverts back over to the county. And staff's recommending approval of this. It's something we've discussed and something we planned on budgetarily.
Any questions from the council regarding Mill Hollow Park? Now, I think this is a side note. This previous discussion was also to include a part of Butler Park, but because the Land and Water Conservation Fund issues that the county had worked through, that's probably coming a little bit later on. But again, any questions with this resolution?
Well, I guess, are they actually conveying title to it or not?
Butler or Mill Hollow?
Mill Hollow Park.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it will stay that way unless for some reason it's not. I guess the restriction, we have the title to it, but we wouldn't be able to do anything with it if anything else, then it gets automatically conveyed back to the county? Is that
Reverts back to the county, correct?
okay?
Mayor, I have a question on that.
Sure, Doug, go ahead.
Do we know what the maintenance is on that property per a yearly basis? Do we
Yeah,
know that?
we budgeted it last year and it's close to 30,000, right, Tim?
No, well, the total for Butler and Mill
Well, I mean,
Hollow that
just-
we budgeted was 130,000.
Just Mill Hollow.
Mill Hollow, I don't have it broken out, but it's a portion of that 130,000.
I think the 30,000 was the maintenance, then water was on top of that. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. The reason I asked that question is there's been a lot of discussion down here in my district about the Crestwood Park situation. And so I won't take up any time on that right now, but
No, I have 30 years history with Crestwood Park. So when you'd ever like to talk about it, as you do, and of course, that's a regional park still owned by Salt Lake County. And I know that PTOS has worked with them over the last couple of years to prioritize or get them to prioritize future development as a regional park, since they've done others on the west side. But it'd be a good discussion for some time. Yeah.
great. Thank you.
All right, item 4.3, resolution 2021-13, consenting to reorganization of the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District as a local district. Scott, do you want to introduce that, or?
This is on the work session agenda where we can get into more details, but basically it would be a structural change a few things under the law on the way Wasatch Front operates or can operate.
Again, we'll be talking about that in our work session. Then we have a consent calendar. All right, let's come back to an exciting topic on staff reports. That's Ferguson Canyon Park initial discussion, which is the overflow parking and the off-leash area. So Matt, I guess we turn that over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. What we have for you today is Rob Donegan is online with us, and he is with Blue Line Designs. If you'll recall, council authorized a contract with Blue Line Design to design the portion of the park and the park and ride area. And we have brought him on board to do that. There's two projects going on here. If I really quickly, and then I'll let Rob take over. I assume my screen is up. What we
Yes,
have
ma'am, yeah.
here is there's two projects going on. There is the parking lot project, which is under contract right now with a firm and being funded by the CMAQ fund, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Funding. And that is going forward. The project that we're working on or would like to discuss today is this portion of the project, which is on the south of the parking lot, that we have brought Blue Line Designs on to design this portion of the project. As you're aware, all of this is the county property, and it's part of our agreement to develop this into a park and be under construction this year. And that is why we're here today. What we would like to do is have Rob speak a little bit about what's happening and then take input from the council and to have that discussion with you as the council and ask questions of him and be able to give us some guidance moving forward on some things you'd like to see. When we're done with this, we will also be going to the PTOS committee and visiting with them and having these same types of discussions. And then this will, once we get to a certain point in the design, we'll be bringing it back to the council and to the public to have these more discussions and input, and then we'll go into final design. So this is a big step at the beginning of this process with you as a council to to have this discussion and get some input from you. So with that, if there's no questions about the basics of the park, I'll turn the time over to you, Mayor, and Rob, so that he can direct that discussion.
All right, welcome, Rob. Can't see you, but welcome. Oh, there you are.
Rob, if you need to share your screen, I believe you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, it looks like you stopped sharing yours, so I will go ahead and pull that up again.
You're a little quiet, Rob. Can you turn your volume up?
Can you hear
There
me
you
better
go.
now? I'll just
That was
hold-
better. Yeah, it
hold my
sounded like the
mic up to
mic
my
was out
face.
of.
All right, can you see the concept again? Okay, great.
We can see it,
yeah.
plus we have copies in our packets, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, again, just introducing myself. I am Rob Donegan, a landscape architect with Blue Line Designs, and we're excited to work on this project, having worked on it a little bit before, more so with Michael Johnson than with Matt, but kind of transitioning now into the final design of this space, and again, excited to do so. I think, you know, like Matt mentioned, I think our main goal in putting this before you tonight is to get any initial feedback, any initial direction that you may have for us before we move into the final design of this park specifically. So maybe, if it's okay, Mayor, if I can maybe just generally explain the current layout and the current programming that, from our understanding,
Please, yeah,
where
go
we
ahead.
stand right
Yeah.
now. So again, the parking lot will provide parking not only for this park space itself, but obviously access up to the existing Ferguson Canyon trailhead. But specifically from the south end of the parking lot, the park property will be fenced with the purpose, at least right now, of it being a off-leash dog park. And so there will be a perimeter fence around the entirety of the park. And we actually were out there today just kind of inventorying existing fence lines and existing fences that exist out there on the properties that are out there right now. And it kind of varies. Some properties are fenced, some properties aren't. And so we'll need to consider that as we move forward. But generally speaking, coming in off the parking lot, you'll go through a double gated system just to assist with dog control as you're entering and exiting the park itself. And there will be a primary asphalt loop path that runs through the flatter portions of this site. And that will be ADA accessible. Will be a hard surface. Again, like I mentioned, right now we're proposing it to be asphalt. There will be spur trails that come off of that just to provide, you know, different walking routes and just interest in that experience. Those may be asphalt, they may be a different material as well, but for sure we'll have one loop path that will be hard surface and accessible. Along that path, we'll provide amenities such as potentially signage, pet waste pickup stations, benches under, you know, little shade kiosks, overhead structures, and potentially having a drinking fountain and a dog wash off area, et cetera, et cetera. Similar, you know, such items that you may see at a dog park. After you get past that main loop trail to the very south end of the project as it goes up the hillside there, we will provide access into that hillier area, but it will only be a soft surface natural path up in there, and it will not be accessible. Primarily because of the, you know, severe topography that exists in there. Our intent is to maintain as much of the existing vegetation as possible and keeping it more as a natural park rather than making it manicured. So as we disturb the site, any additional landscaping that we will put back in, kind of represented by the more colorful circles that you see on the plan, would be native or pseudo-native in nature to be consistent with that approach. We do anticipate that we will have an irrigation system as we provide landscaping, not only in the park, but around the parking lot as well, mainly for establishment purposes and survivability of the larger plant material.
You said you do anticipate irrigation?
We do anticipate irrigation,
Thank you.
even
I just
even
didn't
in
hear whether
a
you said yes or no.
yes, yeah, even in a native scenario, We like to have irrigation, at least for establishment purposes. Otherwise, the survivability of your plant material drops precipitously. So I think that's the general description of the intent of the park design. As you know, there's the multi-use path project that's separate from us going on along Wasatch. And then like Matt mentioned, the parking lot itself, the final design for that is a separate project as well.
Thank you,
So
Rob.
if-
Of course, I'm passionate about this project as I am with any green space, and I have about 10 comments. But before I jump into my comments, I'd like to open up to the council and see, and of course, you touched on a lot of points in your brief description, but council, general comments, questions that you'd like to pass on to Rob?
Yeah, this is Tally. Is there a way to secure a small dog only area?
We've talked about that briefly. My concern with that is because the area is not that large and because of it's a very narrow space because of the topography and adjacency to the Wasatch. My concern is if we start to cut this thing up too much, that the survivability or viability of the landscaping within that area, again, really drops pretty quickly. Just from a overuse standpoint. But
Wonder
it's
if we should get some-
certainly something we can consider.
Okay. Other question was the water. Is that accessible to the dogs?
Yes, typically we do a combination fountain where there's obviously a normal drinking fountain for people that would have a dog bowl as well. In addition to that, we'll probably have yard hydrants or spigots that you could fill up a dish, fill up a bowl, or fill up a bottle.
Any like really cool features that award-winning dog parks have had?
Not necessarily in this one. Again, I think the intent is to keep it more naturalized. We actually designed one recently that had a doggy splash pad in it, but that got cut out, not because people didn't like it, but because of budget reasons. So, but I think, yeah, again, I think this one's a lot simpler.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, this is Councilmember Michael, and this is my district. Is there, can you add some setback distances perhaps from maybe the walking trail to the homes or I don't know if you'd have that information off the top of your head. I'm noticing that we sort of surround on two sides a home, just as you're getting off of Wasatch Boulevard and making the left turn. I think maybe they're, I don't know, condos or something. I'd just be curious to know how close it is we get to those homes.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent distance, and especially because of the topography there. But I'll, if you want to keep talking or
you can come back later. It's
asking
fine.
questions, I'll bring up my CAD drawing as as we go through these questions, and I can give you some dimensional references.
Is that what's on the screen, Rob? Something just popped up.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm blocking the concept. Yeah, that's part of it, but I'll get rid of that in a second here.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't something going bad.
Well, I recall there was like a secondary staircase type entrance that allowed access up onto Prospector further south. Has that been deemed unrealistic, or I don't see any spot to do that here?
Yeah, that was removed from the concept because I believe the city has no control over that piece. I think it was initially a hope to be able to do that, but that hasn't come to fruition.
Councilmember Bracken, that piece is not in city's property anymore. It belongs to those adjacent neighbors. And the other difficulty with that was the steepness, it was very steep trying to get up that grade.
It just seemed like that would be an easy way to pop up and get up to the timber mine, the Ferguson Canyon trailhead. So what you're saying, anybody who wants to use this for trailhead parking is then going to come out the north end of the parking lot, walk up Prospector to timber mine, and then head up that direction. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's the way it operates now as well with the dirt parking lot that's there.
Okay, Rob, and I spent years looking at dog parks and traveled in several states, not to name drop or anything, but one of the most important things that I recognize, especially in all the dog parks in Colorado, I think are kind of ahead of the curve, is that I think in our dog park, and it relates to when you talk about keeping it natural, and that is, I would really hope that we're going to stay away from any type of chain link fencing. There's some beautiful parks and they have pictures, and I know PTOS has seen those as well, of using log pole fencing with a wire, almost invisible mesh in it that really allows the park to blend into the hillside, the natural environment. So I would hope that we would look at staying away from chain link fencing, which I think would be a detraction rather than an amenity, since we have to fence the whole dog parking.
Yeah, that's a great comment. We actually have talked with chain link and ornamental iron fencing with city staff to date. But yeah, I actually began my career in Colorado and we did a lot of timber.
Out around Littleton and outside Denver. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
great big regional ones, but they use those log pole with that. It's almost like a chicken wire behind it that you can't even see it, of course.
Yeah, it's just a welded wire mesh, but
Yeah.
yeah, we've done that in the past with even not necessarily lodge pole fencing, but just like a three rail fencing.
Yeah, something, but I would hope to see it as wood rather than ornamental metal of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah, and we certainly support that. Sometimes municipalities shy away from using too much wood fencing just because of the maintenance aspect of it. But
well, this is a small enough area that
yeah,
that I think it would really, and of course, if I lived by it, I would appreciate that. I know just Scott would remember just across the street when we proposed our previous dog park, it was part of the question is the aesthetics of it. Another follow-up question, and ties to Tally's a little bit, obviously, traditional dog parks have the small, big dogs separated. The parking area, if you look at that entry, we're not including that part that's directly to the east of the parking that's adjacent to Prospector? Is that because of steepness of elevation?
Yeah, there's a severe drop between Prospector Drive and the parking lot as you get further to the south.
That's what I assumed. Again, if you look at Sandy's Dog Park and the one that's in Constitutional Park, downtown, like in some of these, they've had troubles historically on surfaces in
Correct.
the undeveloped areas. I mean, some people have tried grass, it's not worked. Some have tried artificial, some have tried aggregate. In between the walk paths, do you have a plan of some? I mean, I appreciate the idea of keeping it natural. Is there anything we can do natural that helps prevent it from being just a mud pit?
I think a lot of that has to do with concentration of use.
Yeah.
And vegetation. I've walked through this area a couple times, and I think if we can keep a lot of that existing vegetation, while still keeping it safe, obviously, I think it'll help prevent some of that.
Good.
Again, I raise this with staff as well, but I think where we end up with, larger open areas, wear and tear will certainly be a concern in those areas, especially if it is just a natural, a native grass surface, because that may not wear very well in the long term with overuse.
But I think there's still some other surfaces, and I won't spend a lot of time to it, that you can put in some of those areas to allow it to wear better than others. Same material used on trails as an example.
Yeah, you can do, again, if you look at I think it's the West Jordan Dog Park, where they actually have two large dog areas and a small dog area that are all separated. They have one pod that is purely a inert material, you know, kind of a granular, compacted granular material. And that certainly can be looked at. It's really not that friendly with dogs.
Oh, we want to be sensitive to that and not take away from the natural area. I think if I'm a resident there, I really like it to be as native as possible.
Right.
And that would go with the theme that we'll have in other areas along that corridor, especially with Wasatch Boulevard. But I appreciate the signage issue, keep it natural, you know, benches and appropriate shading where we can. The water's critical. The surface of the paths, I appreciate the one hard surface, but I really like the idea of the other ones not being hard surface, but some other material. You know, and so, wow, I think we're on the right path if we can make sure that the fencing piece is appropriate and not a sore thumb standing up out of the nature area.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate the comment about the surfacing, because I think that's in all things dog park design, that is probably the most critical component and most controversial, actually, component of all dog park designs. And unfortunately, it has a lot to do with the size of your dog park.
Yeah. Well, in the train and too, and when you set up in the southeast corner, that's not going to be accessible. It's accessible to dogs, but not patrons.
Well, no, it'll be it won't be ADA accessible. Again, we'll provide a natural path up into that quadrant. It just won't, just because of the grades, it won't be 5% or less.
Yeah.
Rob, I've got a question if you got a second.
Yes.
Go ahead, Doug.
On the trees, this is Councilman Peterson. On the trees, are we going to go with deciduous and evergreen? And also, is that water obviously not just to get things established? That would be a permanent feature to need to have water there for the duration of the park?
Yeah, I think that's a judgment call that we can make as far as how native we are with our plant palette. Our plant palette has not been established yet, but we can certainly, I mean, my assumption was that, yes, it'll be a long-term irrigation system. As far as deciduous versus evergreen, again, we haven't really established that yet, but typically we try and diversify a little bit and do a mixture of both.
But I think too, we want to blend in well with the environment.
Right.
Yeah.
On the very far southwest corner, part of your trail looks like it goes out to the sidewalk. Is there going to be a secondary pedestrian access there to that area?
That was the intent initially. Again, I'm not sure what the schedule is for that multi-use path project. We'll work with Matt on that, on the viability of that connection. It may be a kind of a future phase after the multi-use path goes in.
And it's a little hard.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry, Doug.
Just real quick, any deceleration lane or pullover lane to enter, is that, I know that's probably an issue for Matt, but is there a possible congestion point right there at the entrance?
You're talking about entrance into the parking lot or onto Prospector off of?
I'm looking at, well, you've got Prospector feeding into Prospector, but it also looks like there's greenery to the edge of that, kind of in not a triangle shape, but maybe we can blow that up a little bit, concentrate right there. Is that a green space there that I suppose that's a sign or something there to indicate?
That's a sign, and there's wayfinding signs that are along there. One of the challenges, you can see some of the grades that are on the map itself, some of the grade lines.
Right.
This property is extremely challenging. If you go to the east side, it's very steep. Also on the west side of that entrance, putting in a decel lane that you're asking about would be very, very challenging, just based on the grades that are in this property.
Yeah, I'm not stating that we have to have that, or I'm just trying to get a feel for it. Sometimes a bird's eye view doesn't give you the real the ingress egress type thing there, because and we've got the parallel versus the perpendicular parking. I see that, But when we swing into there, I just don't know how many feet that is just to try to get things in and out of there, because wouldn't we have larger vehicles going in there as well?
It will be at least a commercial type width on the parking entrance. It's not going to be just a regular approach for a driveway for a home. It will certainly be big enough to accommodate. For instance, one of the smaller ski buses can go into there, make the turnaround. So we know we have those issues to meet.
And that white band that enters the meets with Prospector, what does that represent, that white band across the road? Is that just a beginning point?
That's crossing the parking lot?
Yes, right there, the Prospector and the throat of the entrance.
Right
Is
there?
Yes, right
Yeah,
there.
that's a symbolic for a drive approach. It's
Okay.
it's an approach.
It's not a feature. Okay,
No,
thanks.
it's not a feature. And depending on what we'll have to do with stormwater coming through there, it may just be a waterway going across there with curb returns.
So is this going to be a plowed situation then, Matt?
That would be definitely a decision by the council if we want to leave it open in the winter. That would be a decision that we would have a policy decision on that.
But the assumption would be for me that it would be a plowed situation and it would be open.
Great, thank you.
And
Christine,
if
you
that's
have-
the case, then yes, we'll take care of it with the snow plowing.
Yeah.
It will be on the routes.
Christine, you had another question. Yeah.
I did, and I don't know if this is more of a question for Matt, but if you scroll out, I was just thinking about the church-owned land on the other side of Wasatch Boulevard, and if all the stars aligned and we were to end up owning that parcel, and if we could find the funds to go over, can connect from this side of the road to that side of the road, is there something, do we want to consider that in these plans for the future? Again, a lot of ifs and probably not a high likelihood that it would happen, but I'm just trying to see on that map if we could see where you might see a overhead structure over the road connect the two sides.
That is getting out there. We actually had that discussion as a staff. We kind of beat that one up a little bit, and with Rob as well, kind of played around with it. Once again, and I don't want to sound like I'm harping on the property. It is a small property with some very challenging grades. Getting an overhead structure would be very difficult because of the landing. You need quite a bit of space for a landing on the other side. To meet ADA requirements. We've talked about looking at a possibility of a tunnel going under the road.
Yeah.
And that would, involve working with the state. It would, and I don't know, maybe Mike has something to add to it when he's talking with the state about the environmental document. I'm not sure if that's being considered, but that would be another thing that would have to be addressed. And I'm not saying it's impossible, and we have talked about it. I think it would be great if we had that property across the street to do something. I'm not sure how to make it connect though.
I'm looking at the Google Earth right now. It almost, I don't think Prospector's high enough. Would make more sense to go from Prospector and go over and go down rather than try to go up and down on both sides. But it's certainly challenging because that property doesn't start until, it kind of ends just after you start parking there. There's not a lot of space there. That is worth considering.
I guess my vision for Wasatch Boulevard is if we can convince UDOT to agree to pay for a couple bores to connect the east and the west side, different, here, maybe closer up south and on Wasatch, those should be discussions that would be great to have with them. That's just that's one council member. I don't know if others would agree, but I do like the boring versus the overhead and the stairs and everything that comes along with those structures. So thanks for thinking about it.
And conceptually, I think that's something we've definitely discussed periodically, and it's kind of like at Wasatch Boulevard and the mouth of Big Cotton Canyon, how we go underneath the freeway there, even though we have a bridge. It's going under is sure more palatable. I noticed, Rob, I think you put on some setbacks.
Yes.
As
Yeah,
Christine
so we
questioned.
have decent setbacks. These 3 houses at the very south end, get within 40 feet or so. And then this isolated one is probably gets the closest, which is, just about 30 feet.
Rob, one suggestion.
Yep.
Again, looking at what we dealt with the other dog park too, with the neighbor when we were getting conceptual approval. I remember this. The landscape plan should include any screening that would help mitigate any concerns they may have along the fence line where you've got the shorter setbacks.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly something that can block the view, if you've got, if you happen to be that house you just point out and you have a dog in the backyard, it could kind of change your dog quite a bit if he's always seeing friends that he wants to bark at across the way. So, something thicker or maybe a little more opaque would probably be better.
And Tim, I'm assuming too that there will be a fiscal impact, not just construction, but ongoing maintenance. So we're going to want to get an idea budgetarily of what it would take to maintain this and probably modify the contract with the service area, whom I'm assuming would do this with other parks.
Yeah, we will be working as the design process goes forward. We will be working with what the ongoing maintenance would be. And then, yeah, we would need to update the interlocal agreement and have the rec district do this. So we will definitely work towards that.
And I assume, Rob, that after you take our input tonight, which was very rough, that you'll meet with the PTOS committee who've got a lot of advocates who are excited to see something develop, even though I think you've said numerous times, and Matt has, this is really quite small. That's why I don't really call it a dog park. I call it off-leash area, but it is still a dog park. And this does have a restroom as well, correct?
Yeah, you can see it's labeled there, and it'll be on the parking lot side.
Yeah.
But yep.
And two, after PTOS, you'll come back to the council. We'll have a final look at it, I assume.
Yeah, we have a couple times with you guys and a couple times with the PTOS. Yep.
Yeah. Further questions, comments from the council?
Yeah, one last question.
Sure,
You guys are doing the non-dark dog area as well, yeah?
We're doing the landscaping around the parking lot.
I'm just wondering, I'm throwing out an idea if there's enough room to put in a tiny bouldering, like a bouldering thing.
Like a scrambling area for dogs or actual climbing for humans?
Yeah, climbing for humans, like a little bouldering area in the non-dog area.
Yeah.
Are we too tight on space?
Well, we have a nice hillside there that could have a wall, but I'll let Matt tackle that question.
One of just on that one, council, we are certainly open to looking at the things that amenities you'd like to add, but we're approaching this and we budgeted this such that it's like the mayor says, it's an off-leash area, trying to stay as native as we possibly can and still make this a high quality area. So just if we start looking at too many things, then we start taking away from other things as well. Although we are open to any and every idea and coming back to you with those ideas.
What do you think, Council Member Michael? I think our climbers and hikers are going to be abundant here. It's like cats.
I don't know.
No opinion?
Well, I think, like we've said, take all these ideas, and as you're putting things together, if it's natural, it fits. I think what I've seen, and I walked this site recently too, it's much smaller than I realized, and it's actually small because of the steep slopes. But I think we're going to maximize what we can get out of it with the off-leash area, the restroom, the parking, and that area you're referring to, Tally, because of steep slope. Again, I was thinking even a small off-leash area, but I understand there's some challenges. But through landscaping, you can do some things. And for me, you'd have to define bouldering because it can be a variety of different sizes and ways you use it. But let them look at it as they look at the landscaping, and we'll have another go at it as it comes back to us. But I think too, to be really sensitive, as Christine brought up, those setbacks, because once we go to the public, and I've been through several public hearings on off-leash dog areas, and it's those residents right around it are immediately going to have some concerns. So we want to be able to have talking points to show how we've mitigated some of those concerns by, of course, landscaping, trails, and setbacks and stuff.
I know it's difficult to measure, but have we looked at the possibilities of what this will be? Will this be a destination? Will this be, obviously, dog parks are few and far between. I know what Tanner Park has become. Do we have any ideas about what we can anticipate the usage and who will use this, and how far people will come to use this small of a park, I guess?
That's an excellent question. And we had the same problem at Mount View Park when we put in a regional amenity in a neighborhood facility, and it brought people from wide and far. So I think this is another discussion going forward, how we want to control use and what choices we have. I'd be concerned if it became a regional off-leash area because it's just not big enough. It needs to be more localized, and maybe we start with signage, and then from that you can get more restrictive if it's abused, but something we'll have to look at.
Yeah, I might just comment. There's already an informal dog park in Cottonwood Heights. I don't know if you guys are aware, but not far from here. I'm not gonna say where it is, but
we have
I think
several actually.
it's probably several, and it's natural. And there's a small parking area, and there's usually 4 or 5 cars there. But I think in terms of how I'd like to see us market this is that this is the Ferguson Canyon overhead, overflow parking. I don't think we need to tout it as anything more than that. And our residents will probably figure it out. And I think word of mouth is enough. That's just my general feeling, because I'll be the one getting the calls, as will the mayor. So
no, I think you make a good point. That's why I try and downplay dog park, because it'll go on some master list throughout the county, and you'll advertise, social media. We allow off leash as you visit Ferguson Canyon, and and of course, Doug, how Crestwood Park is used. It's a major off leash area as well. So
well, unintended off leash dog park. We did talk about that last night in our Zoom meeting. It is a chronic problem. There's varying degrees of people's responsibility to their pets. You can't blame the pets. It's usually the owners. I'm still trying to figure out why you would bag your dog poop and then leave it on the trail. I'm trying to decide if there's a poop fairy that picks that up and gives them $1 for each bag. I'm not sure.
There is, but anyway, I think those are good comments. I like what Christine said about how we move ahead with this as far as vision and marketing. The signage will be critical. As Rob put some things together there, and of course the gating system, the fencing, the aesthetics. So it's an attractive park amenity that serves primarily Ferguson Canyon with some off-leash amenities. So yeah, that's the way I'd like to.
Low key.
With some good signage, you could say, you brought your dog to Ferguson Canyon. This is the place you can let them run off leash. That could either alleviate, hopefully, some of the I know people go up that canyon now off leash. Maybe that would encourage them to either stay down here if that's the only reason they're going there. If they like to hike, then we can maybe put a sign there that says if you're going upstream, then you need to use your leash. I don't know, something like that.
That thing, but again,
We could be helpful.
Yep, but we'll have some constituents who will just want to go park there and let their dogs run for a minute. And we understand that as well, but we won't mark it as a regional amenity. Yeah. All right, good feedback, good comments. I love the progress. Matt, is a time frame to complete this all by the end of the year?
Time frame is to be very much under long way in construction, into it on construction. We're pushing up against the clock once again on asphalt if we pave these trails. But the park itself, I think, is actually going to go a little quicker than the parking lot. So
Good.
we're pushing to get it constructed by the end of the year.
I'd love to see that for selfish reasons. Yeah.
Matt, is there any penalty for not getting it completed in this year? I know we have some fairly strict requirements to get that done this year. Is there any grace period on that if we cannot complete it in this year?
I'll comment on that, Matt, first. I think we will evaluate that as we get towards the end of the year. If we feel like we're not going to have it completely finished, we will definitely be going to the council to the Salt Lake County Council to get an extension if we need, even if it's an informal one.
And Doug, I think as long as we've shown good faith and it's well into construction, I think that's the real intent. It's if we hadn't started construction and it wasn't funded, we'd be problematic. But I think if we're well underway and I can see it's just finishing up some things, I think we'd be fine.
That's my hope. And I think that they,
Yeah.
that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, they're good partners. All right. Any last comments regarding this? All right. Rob, thank you for joining us tonight. Matt, thank you for the introduction.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We're again looking forward to it and we'll consider the feedback given. So,
Yeah, thank you.
yep. Bye-bye.
All right. We have another special guest, one of our prized employees, and we have many of those, to talk about our interlocal sustainability master plan. Our associate planner, sustainability analyst, Samantha. We'll turn it over to
Fantastic.
you.
Great. Thank you for making time for me on tonight's agenda. Are you folks hearing me at a good volume and seeing my screen now?
I am.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Just still a year later of doing this, still want to check. So I am going to go ahead and kind of click through these slides. Tonight, I am here mostly to share an update on the Interlocal Sustainability Action Plan, as the mayor mentioned. I'm also going to touch briefly on the sustainability webpage that staff has been collaborating on, but it'll mainly be focused on this plan. So as a bit of a refresher, the purpose of this plan is to coordinate efforts in terms of sustainability among our Tri-City region of Cottonwood Heights, Holiday, and Mill Creek, to provide a consistent sustainability vision for the future of these three cities, and to also clarify city sustainability goals for interested community members in these communities. Looking at the mechanics of the plan, we have kind of 5 main sections that I'm going to go through. These sections were developed from input from staff from each of the cities through several iterations of staff review, and also from community partners that we've had the pleasure of collaborating with. And then there's also some auxiliary sections that cover kind of some housekeeping items, things like table of contents, introductions, city context, key terms, and plan partners. And these were just developed from existing plans that these cities have adopted, as well as precedent plans from other communities in the nation. So as I start clicking through this, please interrupt me at any point if you have feedback. I've got my pen and my paper, and I'm prepared to take down your comments and make those changes.
Samantha, we're seeing all the slides on the side as well. Do you want to do that, or?
Yeah, I'm just going to click through them if that's okay.
Okay.
The live transcript is actually covering my buttons to do it normally. So
that's
as long as
fine. Yeah.
Okay, as long as it's not disruptive for you guys.
Yeah.
I can also kind of narrow it off.
No, that doesn't matter. No, you can leave them there.
Okay. So again, please interrupt me if you have any comments. It's hard to read body language on Zoom, so don't hesitate to just jump in and tell me what your thoughts are. So moving past the table of contents here, we get into our plan introduction. This gives a bit of background on the geographic, demographic, and sustainability context for these three cities. Offers a brief note on the juxtaposition between cities and climate action, and then dives into the recommended use of this plan. I want to briefly touch on that. This plan, again, is intended to serve each of these cities, and it's intended that each city will adopt the same final version of this plan. So in doing that, we've had this kind of challenge of creating a plan that is specific enough to really help direct goals in these cities, but general enough to be relevant to all three. So to give the caveat with that it's sort of high level, it's somewhat general, and as each city deems appropriate, they can dive deeper into those topics that they're especially passionate about. And then finally, in this introduction, we have some content on community engagement, just specifying that some of these initiatives are sort of back-end kind of internal staff and official work, but other things are excellent opportunities for community collaboration and input and engagement, and that those opportunities should be consistently considered throughout the process of these projects. So then looking into kind of our core sections here, just gonna click down a bit so I can get back to where we want to be. The first one I'm gonna, oh, and then let me briefly mention too, sorry, city context. This page gives a little bit of kind of a current status report on the projects these three cities are working on. So it's meant to recognize the work that's already been done, as well as provide kind of a baseline for jumping off into future projects. Okay, so the first core section here is development. In lieu of reading each line, I'm just going to kind of go through the main components of each of these sections and share some examples from them. And hopefully that gives you a good idea of staff's vision for how this plan will be used. So the plan is organized into strategies and policies. The first strategy in this section is sustainable buildings. This is a focus obviously on building processes. Some of the policies within this strategy include things like encouraging the use of local building materials when possible, to discourage the transportation impact from importing materials, or encouraging quality construction techniques and durable materials to, extend the life of buildings. We have a strategy that covers sustainable sites, which focuses a bit more on development at large. Some of the policies within this section include requiring site connections within developments to adjacent neighborhoods and amenities to encourage walkability in our city, or encouraging developers to provide rough-in connections in their developments for future projects like solar or EV chargers. And then we have the next strategy, which is to demonstrate sustainability benefits. This one focuses more on raising awareness of the advantages that sustainability offers for a community. So it may be things like recognizing local businesses and partners who exemplify sustainability in their operations, or maybe providing information to our development community on the benefits fiscally, health-wise, and environmentally of sustainability. And then finally, we have a strategy related to light pollution, just continually striving to protect our night skies and the assets they offer. This is an area that Cottonwood Heights has done excellent work in so far. We hope to continue to look at those efforts. Our next core section is energy use. This one has its own set of strategies and policies. The first strategy is to support energy programs, and this focuses on kind of coordinating and building upon programs that already exist for energy use and conservation. So this may look like continuing our participation in the Community Renewable Energy Program, or House Bill 411, or maybe considering future opportunities for renewable energy buyer coalitions as those become available. The next strategy in this section focuses on encouraging energy saving projects, really with a community focus. So this could entail things like streamlining our permitting process for projects like solar and EV chargers, Or maybe it looks like providing outreach to our community members on ways to retrofit their homes and their buildings. The next strategy is kind of a counterpart to this one. It focuses a little bit more on energy conservation internally. So this involves looking at things like building auditing to understand the ecological impact of our city buildings, and considering energy efficiency when we look at new purchases for our facilities and our infrastructure. And then finally, this section also includes a strategy that relates to energy and emergency management and the relationship between those two concepts. So this may involve looking at ways to reduce our peak demand for electricity use in order to allow energy availability should an emergency event occur, or considering opportunities to diversify our energy supply in preparation for disasters should those occur in the community. So our next section here is going to be on landscaping. And this starts out focused largely on trees. Trees were something that each community brought up again and again of the importance of those to community identities. We wanted to really include those in our efforts. The first strategy focuses on protecting what exists currently in terms of tree canopy, maybe through requiring landscaping plans for more of our development projects and more of our minor development projects. Maybe completing an inventory for our existing tree canopy to understand the assets we currently have and the condition of those assets. And then the next strategy builds upon these efforts with a focus of adding new trees and foliage. So this can maybe look like considering foliage impact fees to offset the impact of development, or looking at landscaping standards for public and private property. This section also includes some efforts for low impact landscapes. So this really focuses on raising awareness of the broad array of options that exist for low impact landscapes. So that can entail outreach for low water landscapes, such as xeriscaping, or it can also entail considering standards for low impact stormwater management through the use of things like bioswales, rain gardens, those sort of efforts. We also have some standards here, a strategy that covers standards for lot coverage. Most of the cities have existing lot coverage standards, but they can be unclear as to what is counted towards that lot coverage. So these policies aim to clarify that and to consider what materials may qualify as impervious versus permeable, and update those standards there. And then finally, this section includes a strategy related to open space areas, obviously continuing to develop open space master plans if those are not already underway, and then considering things like the impact of future infrastructure on habitat area for plants and for animals. Moving to our next section here. Thanks for bearing with me while I click through these. We have transportation. The first strategy in this section focuses heavily on idling. Vehicle idling is a very unique opportunity to really affect local air quality. A lot of sustainability work is more regional or even nationwide, but idling affects our community right here in Cottonwood Heights. So this is important for Cottonwood Heights, Holiday, and Mill Creek to look at. So this can build upon existing idling ordinance efforts through things like conducting idling audits to understand maybe where the most idling occurs in our city, and maybe even distributing anti-idling materials during standard processes like business license renewal or building permits, so that our community partners can kind of help us in those efforts. Also related to transportation, we are considering a strategy of green fleets. So continually assessing the environmental impact of our current city fleets, and as is appropriate and practicable, considering also adding fleet options that use alternative fuels as those purchasing decisions come up. Then we have a strategy of focusing on supporting public transportation. So this will really entail a lot of coordination with our community partners at UTA. So it can be coordinating to make sure that our voices are heard during their planning efforts, or also coordinating with our community members to ensure they have access to public transportation resources like route maps and schedules and those sort of items. And then finally, in this section, we have some efforts dedicated to active transportation. So for supporting our very active community of cyclists and pedestrians through maintaining existing ways and paths for these folks, as well as installing updated amenities as is appropriate. So the final core section here in the plan focuses on waste management, and we had some great input from our community partners at Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District for these efforts, so they were enormously helpful. The first strategy is looking specifically at reducing paper waste through considering maybe different forms of communications for billing and newsletters and receipts. And we're also limiting our paper use for applications and forms and things we regularly hand out. We've included a strategy here to reduce our food waste, which is an excellent way to reduce the landfill impact that we have as a city. So this may be coordinating with food banks and local businesses to increase food security for members of our community, or even things like just ensuring that the appropriate amount of meals are purchased for city meetings and events to avoid wasted food there. This section also includes some efforts for reuse, so encouraging kind of alternate options to buying new, maybe through advertising local repair businesses that folks can use to repair their worn products, and supporting initiatives that utilize reusable items in lieu of single-use models. And then finally, we have the very simple strategy of recycling, and this focuses heavily with policies that aim to support the existing infrastructure of recycling that exists, whether through providing really clear and consistent information on what can be recycled in our curbside bins here, or providing information on places that hard to recycle items can be taken. This aims to just kind of buoy up the system that already exists in our community. So these are the main 5 sections of the plan. Obviously, I've not gone through each policy line by line, but I hope that this very kind of rapid fire effort has given you an idea of the input we've received from these communities. Before I kind of move into the final parts of the plan, are there any comments from council, any concerns? I am very prepared to take down your feedback.
Well, Samantha, again, to emphasize, this is a regional plan with Mill Creek and Holiday. So have they seen what we've seen already?
They have in staff collaboration. This council meeting is the first at which elected officials are reviewing it, but we will be going through the same process with each city to make sure that the final draft is as consensus-based as possible. And it is our hope that each city will adopt the same final version.
Okay. Well, needless to say, I'm impressed, but go ahead.
Well, I just had one comment. Pam with Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling usually notes when we go through the contamination rates of our recycling and what can and can't be used out of the weekly collection. We typically, Colin Heights usually scores quite well. We're definitely one of the better areas for promoting that. I think that's a win. I guess you can check and see with her and see how Mill Creek and Holiday compare. If all 3 cities are typically high, that may be worth noting as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I had actually had a conversation in my initial months here and was so impressed with the rates that Cotton Heights performs at for recycling. So we hope to continue to expand upon that. That's a great point.
Well,
the only other one, sorry, Mayor, just really quick, that one of the other things that I think is a win as far as the air quality and or the green fleet is that our entire police fleet is on tier 3 with the 70 to 80% emission reductions on those vehicles. I think that's really relevant. And if there's a spot for a shout out along those lines, that would be worthwhile, I think.
Certainly, yeah. I love to advertise the excellent work that we do here in the city and would love to showcase that so I can incorporate that into the city context section.
How do we, you know, I have a commissioner in Emery County that says this to me all the time, trust then verify. I know that's our goal to do that. How do we verify that we're actually doing that with the police fleet? I mean, I don't even think I would know how to fill my own car up with that. So,
Well, I know that all of our vehicles are newer than 2017, which is the first one. And the second one is that they need to be filling up stations that supply that. And our current sources that are on the city credit cards are
You just want to compare.
all tier 3 supplying.
I would just want to, before we make that statement, verify that we're actually, you know, that that's actually happening. Sounds like it is, Scott, but or Councilmember Bracken, but just to be sure.
No, I think that question
Great.
ties into my next point. In my training is, you know, it's called acronym PIE, P-I-E. You know, you have a plan, then you implement, then you evaluate and adjust. But so this is a great plan with some adjustments, and hopefully the others see it. So what's the idea behind, or what's the strategic actions behind the plan? Because it says right on it, it's an action plan. So what are the next steps to start implementing areas that need work?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that's where the opportunity for each city to kind of chart their own course really kicks in.
Okay.
Although there are similarities between Cottonwood Heights, Holiday, and Mill Creek, we are different in a lot of ways. And so I look forward to, after this is adopted, continuing to coordinate with their staff and with their community members on, okay, what are our priorities? We have this really, really big list of ideas, and what do we want to hit first? And as I mentioned, this is pretty high level. My philosophy with it was you can always add more, but it's hard to add less. And so each city will be able to supplement these efforts with personalized standards and resolutions and ordinances and updates. So that'll be a really fun part of the project, is seeing the change happen.
Hey, Sam, as Scott was talking about how great we do with recycling, it spurred an idea. Maybe we could eventually have some competition, like a tri-city competition on various green initiatives. That might be fun for our community.
I think that's a great idea. Some friendly competition can definitely encourage people to show up for the efforts they care about. And it is great that we do use the same waste provider. We all share Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling, so we all get to reap the benefits of their great work.
That's awesome. As I read through your plan, I would love to see the majority of the words recommend changed to required. So with that comes an ask, like maybe you could get back to us with what you would suggest our next policy change should be, or maybe a priority of top 3 that would be really beneficial and impactful. Like tree protecting. I think that's a really terrific one.
I'm certainly delighted to continue to coordinate with the council on your priorities and make my recommendations. And if it is consistent with what the council wants, we can tighten up our language internally. I think again, it's just the issue of keeping it broad enough to be palatable for every city that we're working with. But if that's something that Cottonwood Heights wants to be more ambitious with, then we can certainly do that internally.
Tally, what was
that would be my recommendation.
Oh, what was the word that Tally?
There's a lot of recommendations in the plan. I would love to see more requirements.
More of a mandate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, on certain things for sure. And we're probably needing to make some policy changes, like for tree protecting and impact fees. And
it's also something I'm totally happy to bring back up to the other cities. In my initial draft of this plan, it was a little more harsh and had that sort of language in it. And I received the very gentle and kind feedback of it may be but more well received to tone that down a bit. So just trying to balance, those different wants. But it's something I'm happy to bring up if it's the direction you'd like.
But at the same time, we can always be more restrictive ourselves. And I think that was my point as far as my question is implementation. We can start selecting areas that we feel we want to be more restrictive and strategically start working those, like when we did idling, like when we did light pollution. I think we use this as a guide and start strategically working on some of those under your guidance and support and feelings of the council. Yeah.
That's my recommendation as well. I think that leaves room for each city to meet this plan where they're at and to continually grow along with it.
I would note, and Councilmember Bruce Talley's comment did remind me, and I would be remiss, certainly as we're considering an action item with Wasatch Front. We did do a total conversion of that fleet from diesel to CNG, and it does serve all 3 cities. And we did a slow fill so we could reduce miles as well as the emissions on a fleet of 57 large trucks. So I think that's another potential win.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to include in the context. Each city is at a bit of a different point with the vehicles they own and lease versus those they contract with. So I think it's always a good thing to continually assess the contracts we have and encourage sustainable practices there. So I think that's a great thing to mention.
So timetable when this will come back to each city or to us again for final adoption?
Yeah, so I anticipate taking it to each city. I'm currently coordinating with my counterparts in Holiday and Mill Creek to get on agendas there. I think we anticipate returning for action in spring, where we can take public comment and return to a business meeting for council then. So I think we'll see some movement on this soon, as long as it's consistent with what you guys want.
Final questions or comments?
I do have a few more items to share, if that's all right.
Please, good.
Thank you for all of your feedback on those sections. I just wanted to also note there is a key terms section at the end of the plan. I really wanted this plan to be usable and user-friendly and wanted to avoid as much jargon as I could, but inevitably jargon finds its way in. So I coordinated with some non-planners to review the plan and tell me what they thought needed defining, and this is the list they gave me. So we have some key terms defined here, and I hope that's useful for folks viewing the plan. And then the plan closes with acknowledgements of the many partners, elected officials, staff, and community partners who have contributed. My last note for this evening is just sharing some work we've done on the sustainability webpage. So I'm going to actually stop sharing the screen and just pull up the webpage to share with you guys. This webpage is just through our main Cottonwood Heights website. It's under the community tab on our website, and the URL is just cottonwoodheights.utah.gov/community/sustainability. This was developed with the intent of providing our community with the broad wealth of resources that exist out there for sustainability. So just wanted to show you a few of the things on here in case you have constituents who are asking questions about sustainability. The homepage here features some contact information. We worked with our fantastic IT team to develop a dedicated sustainability email, which is sustainability@ch.utah.gov. So feel free to pass that along if you have constituents with questions. I also have my contact info and Andy Holka's as well. So that's available for anyone who needs it. The homepage also features this collapsible, expandable menu of a lot of different resources. I've sorted it by topics that I have questions asked most frequently about. So if a community member was, say, interested in recycling, they could click into this tab and scan through this information. I've linked guides in English and Spanish, some tips for how to prepare your items for recycling, additional bins you can add to your curbside service. And that same sort of approach exists with these other topics as well. I continually try to update this page to include new resources, and we've also continually updated it to advertise any volunteer opportunities or sustainability meetings that have occurred for the community. And we've just put those in a banner right on the top of it. I just want to also note there are two kind of sub pages here. So there is the city sustainability efforts page, which documents some of the efforts we're working on. It has some links to our plans, as well as a link to the website for the general plan update. Once the sustainability plan is adopted, it'll get linked here as with our open space master plan. And then I have a library here of the resolutions and ordinances that the council has passed as reference. And then finally, the last little feature here is just a frequently asked questions page. I've tried to put some of the most common questions I get about sustainability here. I love it when people call me and ask questions about sustainability, but if people want to just reference the website, there's some basic ones here. So with that, if you guys ever get questions that you're finding would be helpful for me to include, just please reach out. This is very easy to update. Are there any questions or comments on the website? Okay, got a thumbs up, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop.
Again, I don't want to
sharing.
talk too much, but I have to be honest. I mean, I'm just so impressed, and hopefully the council is, because
It's
over
great.
the last 2 years when we started thinking about this and created the position, and of course Tim worked with the other cities, and we did the collaboration, and to see the plan, to see the website, see the policies. I mean, I'm thrilled. I'm just very pleased with the progress and how we have gotten to this point, and have something now hopefully in place that we can continue down this path, because it's a critical path that we need to go down as far as sustainability. So Samantha, I don't
Well,
want
thank
to be
you.
overly flowering, but I know
Okay, I'll take it. You
I
compliment me
know
any
you've
day,
had
Mayor.
support from Kim and Mike Johnson and Andy, and it's a whole team approach, and the council's on board. So it's just one of those win-win things that, and of course, I've talked to the other mayors. I know how they feel. And so just kudos and much appreciated. And I know,
Well, thank you.
yeah. And I know Christine and Tally and Scott and Doug have all been supportive. So I think it's just great progress.
Well, thank you for the support from the council and your continual feedback. I feel like it's the joy of a lifetime to do the work that I do. So please continue to let me know as you have feedback, and hopefully I will be back to council soon for some action on the plan, and I'm sure also back for some updates on the Community Renewable Energy Program. But thank you for making time for me tonight.
Any final comments from the council? I don't want to speak for all of you, but.
I'm happy for you to speak for me, but I always think of the mayor and the mayor's comment that says, we spend so much time working, and sometimes we need to just take our head up and look at all we've done. And I thought the one slide that you put together that showed what we've done in the other cities, and I don't know if you could put that back up. I really like to look at that, because it shows that as a city, I think we're leading even among our peers and our partners and the partner communities there. And
Certainly, Cottonwood Heights
list.
has an impressive list, and that's just a testament to the excellent work the council has done for sustainability. So if there's items missing from this list, please let me know. I was so pleased to look through everything we've done. So
No, that's great. And I look forward. Do you know when we might hear back on the RFP from Blue Sky on the rooftop solar?
Sure, let me give you a brief update on that. So we closed the RFP, we received 4 bids through it, and we selected a preferred contractor that we're currently going through the contract process with, guided by Shane. That contractor has confirmed that they will be able to assist heavily throughout the Blue Sky grant process, and is coordinating with us. We had a meeting today to get going on that grant application. So I'm sure that will continue to be a conversation with the council, but we're looking forward to learning more about our options.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have another 2 items on the agenda. So again, Samantha, thank you so much, and appreciate those efforts. And we won't require you to stay around the whole night, but Tim, you were going to say something?
Yeah, it's regarding the next item. I was wondering if it would be okay if the council would be comfortable with swapping those 2 items, because Pam Roberts with Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling, she's in another meeting with Sandy City. She would like to join us, and she's almost completed with that meeting. So if we could, let me see, maybe it.
No, we can go to item D first and talk about
Yeah.
the park. You can go ahead and introduce that, Tim, and give us a little bit of detail if you want. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like I said earlier, this is the interlocal cooperation agreement with the county for the conveyance of Mill Hollow Park. There was a question earlier by Councilmember Peterson about what we're budgeting as far as the cost of maintenance. I did look that up in between the time you asked that and right now. We've budgeted, and it's in the agreement that we have with the Recreation District, that there's approximately $40,000 of maintenance costs for Mill Hollow. And then there's water costs on top of that, which it would probably be 15 to 20,000 approximately. So that's the cost as far as maintenance. We built that into the budget. That's currently in the budget. And then we'll carry that forward as well through our other budget processes. This interlocal cooperation agreement focuses on that conveyance of the property. As I mentioned, we would become the sole owner. The property would be deeded to us. We'd be responsible for maintenance and upkeep and equipment upgrades long-term. And then there is that perpetual restriction in there that if the property is not used as a park or open space, it reverts back to the county. And there is a provision in there that if there's an expansion of a right-of-way or some infrastructure project, that would be exempted out of that provision. So we've reviewed this. Shane has been heavily involved in reviewing it. Last Friday, we're even going back and forth clear past 5 o'clock on the provisions of this with the county. So we've reviewed it, feel comfortable in recommending approval of it. And that's what will be before you tonight in the business meeting. Happy to answer questions.
I think for the council's information too, this actually was originally to come to us almost 8 or 9 months ago. So we did budget it in the budget and did not expend those funds. So we've saved some money waiting for the county to get it to this point. But it's if you haven't been to the park, it's about what, 8 or 10 acres. It's in District 3 in Mill Hollow. It's got a walking path. When the park was constructed, it was defined as a passive park, which means there's been no formal scheduled activities, though they do pavilion rentals. And it's been maintained by the service area, even under the ownership of the county. They've been a partnership, so it's pretty much been a city park from the beginning when it was developed with the subdivision. But a nice amenity to have in our city.
So Mayor, so the service district has done maintenance on that. Nothing would change then, basically.
They would continue to maintenance and take on a higher level, because the current agreement with the county was that the routine pavilion rental would be done through the service area, which they've always done, and clean the restrooms and some minor things. But once we own it, if there's any higher level maintenance, that would be ours as well with everything. Now, one good thing is that the parking lot was recently resurfaced. It's a fairly new restroom and playground. It does have, it's aging a little bit, but it's a nice amenity, and it clearly is not a regional park. It's definitely a neighborhood park. So why they didn't give it to the city originally, I don't know, but it's the right ownership in my personal opinion.
Mayor, if I may also add, we've also had Ben and his staff at the Recreation District go through and look at both parks, both Butler and Mill Hollow, just to evaluate if there would be any needs prior to conveyance. And the needs have been addressed, at least at this point, with the county. So
good. Any questions, comments about that change of ownership? I see that Pam's joined us, so we can move on to the next item then. Okay, item C on your agenda is Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District resolution discussion. And Scott, I'll let you kind of maybe lead out on that, and you can introduce Pam, even though we know her and we've met with her many times, and you can decide who wants to share with us the proposed resolution.
I'm glad that Pam was a couple minutes late, because I neglected to mention the things that we've done there on sustainability that we were able to hopefully get added with Samantha. Since the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling was formally created in 2013, it had been working as an administrative control board. It was an entity at that time that was created by Salt Lake County. And the board was given the authority to do most of the policy, just administration on how we are collecting waste within the district areas. As time went on, the board has received more and more of that authority. There are, however, statutorily a few things that there are distinctions between local districts, which the Cottonwood Heights service area is a local district, and a special service area, which I think is a service district, which is what Whifford is at this time. They've come up a few times in the last couple of years, most notably when there were some, I think most recently we had some properties, there were about 400 that had annexed into Sandy. And in order for those properties to be moved from out of the waste collection district so that they could be then serviced by Sandy, where they were then now put as a city, changes in the district boundaries need to go back to the creating entity, which in this case has been Salt Lake County. I'm drawing a loss. There's one or two things like that there are distinctions between a local district and a special service district. This resolution is the district is exploring the possibilities of becoming a local district so that those decisions would be made by the board and there wouldn't be having to go back up to the county for minor changes on borders, those types of things, and it could be handled within. Pam can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a couple of years in the legislature, the service districts, it's like Utah League of Cities and Towns, but for service districts, they help sponsor a bill with Whifford in mind to allow this type of transition to occur a little more easily. And what they are doing now is currently asking the member cities and metro townships if proceeding along those lines is something that they would support. And so this is a resolution in support of that change. Now, I'm sure that I've forgotten a couple of details, so if it's okay, we'll let Pam speak and she can correct me.
Well, I'm not sure that you forgot anything, to be honest with you. I do have I'm sure this went out to you all, just kind of the summary that our legal counsel put together. And then Paula, I don't know if
it did come in our council communications week before last, I believe. So
yeah,
yes, it has gone out.
And then Paula, I don't know if you're able to let our legal counsel, Rachel Anderson, in, but she is on, but not able to be a participant. I don't know if I did something wrong when I sent her the link, but at any rate, I'll just kind of reiterate.
I have promoted her to panelist. When you share your link, she going to come in as an attendee. So, but she's now with you guys.
I'm here. Thanks, Pam.
Hey, yeah, sorry about that. I thought I knew what I was doing, but technology always kicks my hiney. But at any rate, Scott did go through, Councilmember Bracken went through the history and the whys and wherefores about the most recent examples of when we had to go back to Salt Lake County and ask permission to withdraw the annexed portions of Sandy that they wanted to have turned over. And then also we did have to go back to the county council and ask permission for the Mill Creek City, when they incorporated in the 5 metro townships, to be able to have a seat on the board. And those are the two most recent examples of why this is a desired change. I mean, the bottom line is the more authority the board has, the better. They are the governing body, but there's still that string to Salt Lake County that we just want to be as independent as we possibly can. And Scott, excuse me, is it okay if I call you Scott? He went through the evolution. So I can let let me introduce Rachel Anderson. She is our legal counsel for the district and a great resource for me as an administrator and the board. She's a guru when it comes to districts, and so I'm going to let her kick it off as far as the legal processes. Or go ahead, Rachel.
Thanks, Pam. You're so kind. And thank you for letting me be here. I logged in just a moment ago, so I don't know what was already discussed. I hope I don't repeat what's already been said. If so, just stop me. So yeah, I recognize a lot of friendly faces here in the group today. So thank you for having me. So as some of you know, and as Pam just said, I deal solely in this area of law, of district law, local districts and special service districts. I represent districts throughout the state of Utah. It's a weird little type of local government, and I'm sure you all are very familiar. For instance, you've got the Cottonwood Heights Parks and Recreation District, which is the local district in your area. So it's just like that. There's two different kinds of districts essentially at play here. We've got local districts and special service districts. I wrote up the summary here that you have in front of you. But just to very briefly explain the difference is that local districts are completely independent and special service districts are not. They are hybrid entities that still are somewhat subject to the entity that created them. In our case, it's Salt Lake County. And as Pam explained the history a little bit, this is a change that has been coming for quite a long time. As the district first was initiated as a special service district back in the 70s, and it was just run as a county division. There was no separate board. It was just run by the county itself. It was just separated probably for financial reasons. But as time has gone on, and as we know, the changes in Salt Lake County that everyone has seen, a lot more move towards municipalities and incorporations. The county's role has just gotten smaller just by the nature of that. So it's the same kind of thing that's happened with, Unified Fire and how that was separated from the county and now they run their own board. This is the same thing. The difference here is that we were created as a special service district, and back in 2012, 2013, when the intention was made to make us completely independent as possible, there just wasn't a statutory method for us to convert to a local district and to allow us to have full independence. So they did as much as they could. The county delegated complete authority to our administrative control board to the extent that they were allowed to. And they sent us on our way, and we've been running pretty much independently since then. There's just a few items where if we were ever, for instance, to do a boundary adjustment, which we have had to deal with, we have to go back to the county to do that. And then technically, theoretically, the county could decide to dissolve the administrative control board at any time and decide to take over operating this district again if they ever wanted to. That's not on the table. It's not going to happen at all. I just state that as an example of how the county still technically owns this organization. So at the time, as I said, there was not a method to convert. So they sent us on our way, but then that very same year in 2013, the legislature adopted some changes in our governing laws that now provide this statutory method for us to go through this process to convert to a local district. That piece of legislation was created for us, more or less, with Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District in mind. And we just had so much on our hands at that point, getting up and running into an independent district, that it wasn't top priority. And then COVID happened, and that kind of delayed us as well. There's been lots of things, but now we're to the time where we're ready to finalize this last piece of the puzzle to create our independence. So it's really a technical step as far as we see it. This is not based on any sort of animosity towards the county or anything like that. It's just completing the process. So the procedural process for this to occur is the county obviously has to adopt, they start with an intent resolution saying that they want to do this. They do a public hearing, and then ultimately they would adopt a resolution approving it. But a very important aspect of the procedure is that every municipality that is currently served and within the boundaries of the district has to give their consent to being converted into a district. And so that's why we're here today. we're meeting with you and all the other municipalities that are in our district to get that consent. There's not really a firm timeline here. It's just as soon as we can gather all these consents, then the county can do their thing and get it done. So that's that. If anyone has questions, Pam and I would love to answer them.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple of questions, and I'll just get the council warmed up. You're familiar with service areas and special districts, and sitting on the UFA board as well. Does the makeup then with the proposed district, does it change? Do we still have equal representation? Is it weighted voting? Is it just one vote? The UFA, we had to go to weighted voting based upon different things, but on certain issues. So what's the makeup of the board that directs the proposed area?
Rachel,
Currently-
if you want
Yeah,
to talk
so-
about the type of district we would be to keep
Exactly.
the board.
Yeah.
Exactly. So currently we are run by a board that consists of one representative from each of the municipalities and the unincorporated county that we serve. They are appointed by the councils. And it's very similar to what you would be familiar with as Unified Fire Service Area, as opposed to Unified Fire Authority. I know that you are on that board, and I know you from that. And so I know you're familiar with the fact that there's two different things. So we would be more similar to the UFSA model. We don't have the added complication of having an interlocal entity that operates alongside us, just like UFA does and like UPD does. We are just a single entity, so we would be more like, your mosquito abatement districts, water sewer districts, your Cottonwood Heights Parks and Recreation District. Now they're different because they have an elected board of 3 members.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah.
Exactly. So there are different types of local districts, not to get too complicated, but we would be under like that UFSA model where each municipality would get to appoint a member, and we would make sure that when we do the conversion, we would be using that model and moving forward. Technically the board by 2/3 majority could vote to change the makeup and the model of the board. I don't see that happening. This form of board works really well for us. We're not the kind of organization where it would really make sense to have a small elected board. The whole point is that it's really good to have representation from each municipality. So that's what we're doing now. I don't see any changes to that. Currently, there's no weighted voting. That wasn't part of the model when the county created this administrative control board, and that would be the same as we move on. There would be no weighted voting.
As a local district, would they have then the authority to assess property tax, or would it be strictly fee-based?
We are currently entirely fee-based. We do not impose a property tax. Special service districts already have the authority to impose a property tax,
Right.
so that wouldn't change. The only difference would be who is the entity that has to go through that very difficult truth in taxation process. Right now, it would have to be the county who would go through that process on our behalf. Once we are a local district, we would have to go through that process on our own behalf. So the
that's my
authority to
point.
yeah,
That's my point, is you would be able then to, on your own,
right.
to go through truth and taxation and to assess property tax if the board agreed to do that.
chose to do that. Pam can speak more to this, but yeah, it's not our intention to do that at all. It doesn't really make sense. So Pam, explain that.
Absolutely. So Mayor Peterson, I totally respect your question because it's come up before as a concern. As the CEO of the district, I enjoy being an enterprise fund and operating on cash. As you know, under the county, when we were the sanitation division, we assessed the fee, or the county assessed the fee on the property tax notice as a separate fee. And so it was a year-end hit of the cash. And we wondered when we separated if we would run into issues and if we would have to take out a bond and get a loan before that cash hit at the end of the year. So when we went to the quarterly billing, which honestly, we were all administratively terrified of launching a billing system. And we definitely, I still have PTSD from the phones ringing off the hook of the residents wondering what the heck happened. But at any rate, it has turned out to be a wonderful thing. It's transparent. We've come closer to the residents. They know us, we know them. I enjoy operating on a cash basis. For me, as the CEO, I would never recommend to the board that we go to a tax, simply for those reasons.
No, I understand. And again, there are other service areas that are also enterprise fund as far as set up financially, but still levy a tax. And what we're saying with this change to a local district would be one member who would vote, but we could be outvoted and a tax could be assigned to our constituents. I think we just need to be aware of that. As Heidi, somewhat unlikely. That's why with UFA, they did a weighted thing and stuff because of those concerns. But
Mayor, I guess I might point out, you're right, but and under the current situation, the body that would be approving that would be the county council, on which we don't have an appointed member.
Right, no,
Just our personal relationships, which may be good enough.
No, I applaud the direction. I'm a fan of local districts. I think when they're managed well, right, membership, it's much more transparent. It's a much better system, but there are those intricacies within that we just need to be aware of and make sure we have the right representation on it as we do with UFA. So
good question. And Mayor, may I also talk to the weighted vote question, because I did ask Rachel about that, because it has come up with one of our cities that's similar in your size of Cottonwood Heights of the weighted vote. And so I asked Rachel, could the board make that decision now and have it be a weighted vote? And her answer was no. We'd have to go back to the county council and ask their permission, which again,
well, and it's really not practical for the 90% of the decisions you would make. It's only practical when it has a fiscal mandate, and that's the way UFA finally did it. And but again, that's down the road. But yeah,
absolutely. And just so you know, the board composition right now, the county has the ability to have 2 seats at the table, even though we only service about 2,400 homes in the unincorporated county. They still have that ability. When we switch to a local district, they'll be equal to all of the other municipalities and have 1 seat.
No, it makes sense. It's a good direction. It makes it cleaner, and I think that's just progress that we're making throughout the county when we're getting away from so much unincorporated areas. So yeah. Any other questions? Sorry to talk so much from council members regarding this proposed resolution from our city in support of this. Hearing none, Rachel and Pam, thank you for joining us, and hopefully Scott is represented as well.
He's doing a great job. He's serving as board chair, as you know, and doing a great job.
And I would just point out for the rest of the council, this is on for action in our business meeting. So if you've got a question, this is the best time to bring it up. But no, I think it's probably a good way to go. Hopefully we'll be able to get some things resolved before the end of the year or too long.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, in a few minutes, we'll be in our business meeting, and if there's a question there that suddenly pops in, feel free to ask it again. But I think we'll have the answers.
I'll make sure I tune in.
Yeah, do.
Rachel's off the hook.
Rachel, you've probably got your hours in, so you can go home.
Thank you.
You're probably already home. All right.
I am. I've got a tough commute up the stairs.
Oh, yeah. All right. That's the last of our staff reports. The only other item on our work session agenda is a review of calendar and upcoming events. April 21 through 23rd is Utah League of Cities and Towns annual conference. And also my apology to anyone who's turned in to our work session night expecting to have the Attorney General's report. We apologize, but the Attorney General has had a conflict in our own organization. I'll be able to attend tonight. We're working to reschedule that. And even if we have to have a special meeting, we need to get that done sooner than later. So we're pushing to get that resolved and move forward. We don't have any closed session items today. So unless there's any other comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn from our work session and reconvene at 7 o'clock for our business meeting.
So moved, Mayor.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second that we adjourn and reconvene at 7. All in favor, say aye.
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 Or any opposed? Hearing none. I'll see you all at 7 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.